So welcome everyone, I'm Alexander Mihaljan and today we have one of the industry leaders, Ahmed Al CEO of DigiPharm. Welcome Ahmed, how are you doing today?
Hey Alexander, good, thank you. Hope you're well, and thanks for having.
Awesome, and I'm excited to have you on the podcast today and I'm sure you're going to be of great value for the audience. Now, before we dive in, could you give us a quick overview of what DigiPharm does?
Yeah, so at DigiPharm we help healthcare organizations pay for expensive treatments based on how well they work, rather than how much they use or consume. Um, this essentially creates a sustainable healthcare system. I'm sure we all read about health systems running out of money or having really tight budgets all the time. And what we do is make sure that they can give the best treatments to patients without overspending.
Okay, that's fascinating. And basically, what inspired you to create DigiFarm? Was there a specific moment or experience that sparked this journey?
So I spent my career as a health economist, helping healthcare organizations buy expensive drugs, mainly in the cancer space and immunotherapies and things like that. Drugs that would often cost around $5,000 to $10,000 per month, and these don't work for every patient. Response rates for different types of cancers can range from 10% all the way up to 70%. So that means, governments or insurance companies or even patients themselves have to spend or pay for, five or 10 patients just for one patient to succeed. And I saw that was creating a drain on healthcare budgets, and I thought, there must be a solution to this. Unfortunately, there is one. It's called value-based purchasing, which is paying based on performance. That happens in a lot of other industries, but in healthcare, it's only now really becoming a reality.
Right, right. But for example, looking back when you started, what would
Mm.
you wish you've done differently in those early days?
There's a few things. It could either be from like the business standpoint or the
Like
operation.
both. So yeah. So from example, from your personal life when you start the business, right? Like what would you wish to done differently from that point?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. First, I'll relate it back to obviously why I was inspired to do it. I'm somebody who likes to um, make changes, get engaged in innovation, not afraid to go against, the grain really. Um, and what I saw is, when I saw this opportunity that no one was really doing it, no one was providing a platform for healthcare organizations to do so, and I was really sick of seeing people, continuing in their old way of working, knowing by the end of the year it's still going to create, a strained health system. Um,
Right.
and what I say, I think I would like to do more differently. I think is probably be a bit more outspoken, you know, within the industry. There's one thing in terms of raising awareness with your product, but also your voice. And I think that's something I should have, done a lot more from the start to really make more waves within the industry. Um, the other things I think that I would like to have done better is probably not be so naive, as a first time founder.
Yeah.
But I'm sure many of the people you interview have come with that response.
Yeah, right. And because you mentioned this, and I think this is very interesting. So, what inspired you to create a value-based payment model in the healthcare?
Um, I think it's one of the main things, and probably is the biggest thing that still stands out today. Is I was working in like the terminal illness space, people who like had 1 or 2 years to survive, in the best case scenarios. And whenever a new product came to market, it would take around 2 years for that drug to be evaluated and approved for purchasing. There's one thing within healthcare is obviously having clinical trials to make sure something is safe. But then, people need to make the decision of whether this is affordable or a good, you know, a good reason to, direct resources or funds to. and that process was taking way too long when there were like people with limited access to drugs, and we're dying day by day.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. But for example, I have a curiosity. So, how are we leveraging blockchain and smart contracts to transform healthcare payments?
Yeah, so one of the big problems here is that when you're paying for something based on how well it works, one of the parties is going to be impacted negatively. Um,
Right.
if the hospital is paying for something and it doesn't always work, they lose out. And if the pharmaceutical company who manufactures these technologies um, doesn't get paid because something doesn't work as well as everyone would hoped, then they lose out, and that creates a mistrust between these parties. And when I started in 2017, smart contracting really started to accelerate, obviously with the launch of Ethereum, um, and then I saw an opportunity to remove the requirement for trust between these organizations, and make it something that's very objective.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting one. And also, could you explain how your software patent is revolutionizing healthcare transactions?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting for us. Now we have our patents in the US, UK, and the EU, and we are expanding in some other regions as well, especially the markets that we're really focusing on. And what we have as a patent for our system to evaluate, the quality of these treatments and how well patients are benefiting from them, and linking them back to flexible prices using smart contracting and blockchain, and that essentially enables us to provide not just the automation of the actual processing of the agreement, but the security around the data, enable a way that everyone can see the results.
Right.
It's not like AI where data goes into a black hole and then you get some sort of output from it. Um, but ours is like fully transparent, secure, and at the same time, maintains confidentiality for the right data points.
Okay, okay. But for example, what role does AI play in your work with the Middle East largest supercomputer?
Yeah, I mean, so we've been, given tenancy at University of King Abdullah in Saudi Arabia, which is KAUST, and we have access to the supercomputer there. AI, we're really utilizing it to accelerate organizational readiness to transact in this way. A lot of the time, if I go to a hospital or I go to a government and say, look, we can save you money with value-based agreements and performance-based contracts, they don't know where to start. They have huge amounts of data, they have lots of demands personally during their daily roles, and what we do is we use AI to find where the biggest savings are for them,
Mhm.
which products are the ones that create the most burden, and get them to that readiness level. So we have a few tools that we've developed, and they're really going down the storm with all of our clients.
Okay, that leads me to the next question, which is what makes your approach unique with DigiPharm?
I think it's a few areas. Obviously, we started with a single smart contracting platform, and thinking people will adopt it. But obviously, we learned very early on that every client and every customer and every ecosystem has their own challenges or gaps. And what we've done at DigiPharm is try and build bridges for each of these gaps. So that means now when we go to any client, whether it's a hospital, a government, or an insurance company, who have the technology of the expertise of filling those gaps for them and fitting within their existing ecosystem rather than ripping everything up and doing that. And I think we have some of the world's leading experts within the space. I'm very confident our team and our wider consulting team as well have probably conducted the most value-based agreements in the healthcare space over the last 7 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. But how did you navigate the Terra network collapse and maintain the business continuity?
Yeah, so that was obviously related to our digital currency. And that digital currency was developed as a reward system for patients to make sure that when we're asking them whether something works or not, they are responding. They're not ignoring our messages and ignoring our surveys. Um, And obviously in 2021 there was a collapse of that network, and lots of liquidity was lost within the digital asset market. um, and for us it's about maintaining and keeping our services up, and keeping the demand there. And essentially we had to just deal with migrations, and transferring our tokens to a different network. I think we were able to show the resilience because there was a real world product behind it. If you're talking about other cryptocurrencies, some that often have nothing behind them, then they're going to struggle.
Okay, but for example, because you mentioned this, how are you bridging the gap between Web3 and the real world healthcare applications?
Yeah, so that again, links back to our work at DigiHealth. We're trying to build a one-stop healthcare ecosystem that is powered and driven by blockchain technologies. The reason why we're so attracted, and involved in the blockchain world is that um, I think it has the same principles and beliefs that we have around global equity and access, and that could be either financial, but obviously that's something that's also important in the healthcare space. So that's why we've really made sure that we connect with these communities who are very much let's say aware and literate in terms of technology. As when you think about even our children now these days, they grow up with technology all around them. So building ecosystems that are able to reward financially, and also in terms of uh, healthcare benefit, and utilizing technology, I think it's a great opportunity.
But what I think very interesting is basically how you start yourself on your own. So my question is, what's been key to bootstrapping growth with minimal external funding?
I think one is obviously a lot of patience. You also need to have the right advisory team with you, people who have gone through some of these processes before, so you don't make the same mistakes. I think we've all made very expensive mistakes, within this business and as founders. And for us is to make sure that we've brought in the right advisors for that. And the other area is definitely show value, and have something or a product that people are willing to pay for, and that negates the need to be chasing VCs, and entering into unfair terms which people often see. And for us, I think that's definitely treated us well.
Okay, interesting. And I often find that innovative solutions face the initial skepticism. So, for example, when you talk to potential clients, what's the biggest misconception they typically have about what you do?
Well, because our journey has been so long, it's like been nearly 8 years now. Initially, people didn't even know what blockchain or smart contracting was in 2017, 2018. The media was very much, pushing the scam agenda. And so we needed to take a year or two just to focus on education, uh, showcasing that these things work, and in the form of pilots, and real world evidence and real world data. Um, we actually started to use a blockchain network that enabled us to add legal pros to some of these contracts, to protect all parties as an additional layer of protection. Um, so making sure that we understood the market we're working in. Oh, healthcare is very risk averse, at the best of
Yeah.
times. And we're not just working on a new technology, we're working on a new business model, and we're a new company as well. So we kind of had three angles that we had to battle.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, looking at the broader industry now, what's your vision for transforming healthcare payments across different markets?
I think we're very much on the way to being the foundation for a lot of healthcare transactions in the markets of interest at the moment, and that's obviously the UK and the GCC, and also in Europe and Africa, we're starting to have a lot more focus on. And our vision is essentially to be the leading value-based system within those regions. We want to make sure that at least 50 to 60% of value-based transactions in all of these markets are are handled by our solutions. Um, and yeah, that's a big aim, but I think we can definitely do it.
Yeah, right, right. And also, how has the healthcare policy landscape evolved to support the value-based payments?
Yeah, that's a great question because when we started, there was no policy in place for this at all. It was just, people were thinking this is a good idea and talking about it at conferences. But now, in the last 12 to 18 months, healthcare policy has changed completely and enabled these types of payment models. And not just that, they're also recommending it heavily. So that is a great opportunity for us, and it's a welcome development.
Yeah, right, right. So my question was, what emerging technologies are you most excited about for healthcare innovation?
Um, there's a few things. Obviously, AI and things like that is interesting, and I think we all know that where that direction is going, where things are going to be, uh, let's say, easier to understand. Uh, Whether it's from the patient side or even from the healthcare provider side, they'll be able to understand more about your symptoms, connect your history with what's happening now, and and provide you a better care or treatment plan. But I think what interests me the most, I think, is the diagnostic space. um, Testing is becoming cheaper, it's becoming more accurate, you're going to be able to identify disease a lot earlier, and that's not even going into what we're going to be able to learn from our genetic profiles and things like that. I think that's what's really exciting for me. um, and then based treatments are going to arise because we'll be able to understand what pathways in the body are creating specific diseases and things like this. Targeting therapies, but I think that all starts at the foundation of diagnostics, and I think that's very, very, very interesting space for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it sounds like you're ahead of the curve in many ways, which makes me curious about your growth plans. So, how are you looking to grow for the next year?
So right now it's very interesting for us because we are finally actually discussing investments from some larger organizations. For us, it's about increasing our footprint globally, um, targeting new markets, launching a few more of our AI products as well. So we've launched two. We have another three in the pipeline. So that's going to be really exciting. And one of the very exciting ones is expanding our public healthcare applications as well. Um, People like you and me can use that on a daily basis. Then we don't have to be patients that are receiving specific drugs. It's for people who want to live healthy and contribute, but also benefit from having cryptocurrency rewards for being healthy.
Yeah, okay, interesting. But for example, if I gave you an extra $1 million for growth right now,
I would allocate it to good question. I would allocate it to a lot for on the DigiHealth ecosystem because we're focusing a lot on that, and that's the patient ecosystem, the patient and public ecosystem, I shall say. Um, we've made some really cool partnerships there, but we have been limited in picking and choosing what to do there. Just to make sure we're doing this sustainably. So there'll be a lot of work there. And the other one is actually bringing on some additional team members to represent us in some of these countries of interest. Again, we have a huge amount of demand. We have daily meetings with lots of clients, whether they're new or old, and helping us address that would be very good. I can send you the bank details if you do want to send.
yeah, no problem. We can discuss after this. And before we wrap up, I'm curious about what's on the horizon. So, when you look at DigiPharm journey over the next few years, what possibilities excite you the most?
Now we're discussing some very major project with governmental bodies where we will create the foundation for the healthcare transactions covering millions and millions of patients. I think that's the most exciting for us, knowing that if we arrive into a country, on a plane, and you land and you see the people, and you know that a good proportion of these who are patients and receive some sort of care, that the payments for their care are going through our system. I think that'll be a very proud moment.
Okay, interesting. And for example, for listeners who want to learn more or potentially work with DigiPharm, what's the best way to get in touch?
So you can contact us via our website or reach out to one of our team directly on LinkedIn. I think that's a really good avenue. We have a Twitter account as well. We have a Telegram, which is focused on our community, especially those who buy or track our digital currency as well. Again, that's a very cool way to get engaged with us, because you can speak to some of our team members on a daily basis. You can engage with other additional users as well, people who use the system or have used the system in the past. So yeah, I think there's an avenue for everyone.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for joining me today, Ahmed, and for this amazing podcast session. And for anyone listening, make sure to check out the DigiPharm socials below in the description, because this episode was packed with value and I can't wait to see what you build next.
Thank you, Alexander, and thanks for having us.
Great, see you in the next episode.
Take care. Bye bye.